week 14 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few running backs I have as sleeper options this week. The first guy, Adrian Peterson of the Seattle Seahawks. Peterson, he came on last week signing with the Seahawks, and he actually got some run in that game, even though we know he didn't have a good one, really. 11 carries, 16 yards, and a touchdown. So right now, Peterson's available in 88% of fantasy leagues. And I know over there in Seattle, there's a lot of running back options with Alex Collins possibly coming back this week, Rashad Penny, homers over there, DJ Dallas, and Peterson. But I think for short yardage and goal line work, Peterson's definitely a running back that's going to have this role over here in Seattle. I don't think they signed him just to have him sit on the bench and be a backup. And we know he's still got that power to drive into the end zone on the 1 or 2 yard gains. So right here, if you need a guy that's only going to score 8 or 9 fantasy points at most, I think Peterson's a decent sleeper option. And like I mentioned, he's available in 88% of fantasy leagues. The next running back's Khalil Herbert of the Chicago Bears. So I'm trying to get ahead of the curve here with Herbert. And right now, Herbert, he's available in 75% of fantasy leagues here. But David Montgomery's missed practice with a lot of ailments going on. And we saw early in the season when Montgomery was out, Herbert filling in and having some big games. Week 6 versus Green Bay, 19 carries, 97 yards, a touchdown, 2 catches, 15 yards. Week 7 at Tampa Bay, another big game for him. 18 carries, 100 yards, 5 catches, 33 yards. And then week 8 versus San Francisco, the last game he filled in, not a great one though, 23 carries, 72 yards, 2 catches, -4 yards. So right here, if he's going to be the number one guy this week, if David Montgomery indeed misses games, too early to tell right now. We'll find out with the final injury report later in the day here. But right here, Khalil Herbert, tough matchup at Green Bay, I know, but this guy's definitely going to get 20, 25 touches. And on volume alone, he's a guy I would start if Montgomery's out. And definitely a sleeper option with the wide amount of fantasy leagues he's available in. So right here, if he does start and gets major carries, he could easily get 8 to 10 fantasy points, in my opinion. He is Herbert. And he's definitely a sleeper this weekend. And the third and final running back sleep is another guy who might get a big workload this week here. And he's available right now as well in 85% of fantasy leagues. And that's Samaje Perine of the Cincinnati Bengals. So far, Joe Mixon, he's had an illness. And he missed the first few days of practice here for this Bengal team. So we'll see if he's going to play or even be 100% going into this week. Because we've seen some decent games out of Perine this season. Week 5 versus Green Bay, 11 carries, 59 yards, 4 catches, 24 yards and a touch. And Week 7 at Baltimore, 11 carries, 52 yards, a touchdown, and a catch for 23 yards. So Perine, we know he's the backup for Mixon. We know he only gets 5 to 7 touches a game since Mixon's been back and having a big season is Mixon, no doubt about it, on the air. So if Mixon can't go, he's a huge sleeper option. But even if Mixon goes, I think Perine could still have a decent workload in Week 14 versus San Francisco. And the Niners do give up the 12th most fantasy points to running backs. So right here, Perine's definitely a sleeper this week. So that's a few running backs I have as sleeper options for Week 14 of the fantasy football season.